All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with Marcia Martin. Marcia, welcome. So awesome to have you on the show today.
Thank you, Kevin. I was really looking forward to this, and I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I have been looking forward to this too. And I knew we were doing this today. I should have got my copy of your book here. And
Oh, I have a copy of my book here.
okay, there we go. There we go. So
Sex, Power, and Transformation
yes,
by Marcia Martin, available on Amazon.
there you go. And I'm going to definitely talk about that. I want to start off by just giving a shout out to Jen Hill because Jen was the one who
Yeah.
introduced you and I. And I'll tell you, that is absolutely the best way to meet new people is through somebody else that we already both have a mutual relationship with and
Yes, and
stuff.
we trust it so well.
And trust, that's it. Trust right there. That's the word.
Yep.
Uh, and when Jen connected us, you and I got to talk, and you were actually your book was just getting ready to come out and stuff.
That's right. It had
And
just, yeah.
I went and picked up a copy from Amazon, and I'll tell you, when I read your book, I was absolutely blown away. I'm like, my God, your background and your history and your your stick-to-itiveness and just going door to door. I don't want to tell the whole doggone story myself here, but yeah, it was absolutely fascinating to read, and that you just have this tie into this long world of personal development and stuff. And
Yes.
and you've kind of been right on the forefront of it the whole doggone time. So
Yeah, I was there at the beginning of the personal development
yeah.
industry, really, the beginning of the human potential movement in the early 70s, 1971 in San Francisco.
So let's talk about that a little bit. So
Sure.
how did you end up there?
Well, first of all, as you know from my book, there are many patterns in my life and my childhood that kind of gave me my independence
Uh-huh.
because I had a rough childhood and a pretty scary father. But I always loved him so much and wanted to be approved by him and wanted to do well. And so I've always known I have to do it myself. That's my thing. And when I moved to San Francisco when I was just 20 from Seattle, Washington, I was going to the University of Washington and left school, went to San Francisco for the spiritual quest. It was the time of the hippies and the flower children, as we were called, and Haight Ashbury, and human potential was just getting started. And I met my aunt for the first time, who was really a distant cousin. And I was just barely 19, I guess. And I started apprenticing with her. And she was a clairvoyant healer and an esoteric astrologist, kind of like a shaman.
Okay.
And she healed. She was magical and she taught me meditation. And she really was a great influence in my life to teach me to go inward and find my answers inward rather than looking outside of myself for what the answers were. And so I really connected at a very deep spiritual level as a result of my training with her. And then I met a friend who was going to this seminar and invited me. It was a guest seminar, and it happened to be the first guest seminar that Werner Erhard, who was the founder of EST, Erhard Seminars Training, which later became Landmark Worldwide. And at the time, he was training and facilitating a training called Mind Dynamics. And it was his first training. He'd never done a training. He was actually an encyclopedia salesman and a used car salesman. And he got into the personal development business. And he led this first guest seminar to tell people about it. And I happened to be there. And
Okay.
when I heard him speak, I realized what he was saying the training would do for you was what I had learned from my aunt, was about responsibility, was about manifestation, was about creating your own destiny, was about transformation, was about a spiritual way to be in the world. And so I just thought I wanted to do that and help him expand that training to
Yeah.
bring that knowledge to the rest of the masses.
Yeah.
And I was just such a little Pied Piper at the time in my early 20s and really gung-ho humanity and save the world and the perfect hippie. And so, I was there at his first training. I did the training. I became the senior vice president of EST after we created EST, which was the training right after Mind Dynamics. And I was there for almost 10 years and helped him take that organization from 30 people in our first training to when I left, we had over 800,000 graduates. And I was
Wow.
in charge of marketing and sales and training the guest seminar leaders and producing all of the events and
Yeah.
filling all the events. So it was quite a ride and a
Yeah.
very big learning experience for me.
Wow. Wow. And so what, and maybe trying to think of how I want to phrase this. What inspires you most about that whole experience? Because I mean, reading your book, there, I mean, there's no way we would have time on this interview to go in depth of the whole experience, but there was so much that happened in that 10-year period and stuff. And what inspired you most about that whole experience?
Well, and also my book is really about the last 50 years of personal development. It's because I have been at the beginning of many of the personal development programs.
Yes.
I helped
Yeah.
Tony Robbins. I was helped shape his early career and helped him go national and was part of when I ran his company for a couple of years in the early 80s was helping him launch his book Unlimited Power. So I also work with John Hanley, who created LifeSpring, and I work with Bob Hoffman, who created the Bob Hoffman process, and I co-created the Transformational Leadership Council with Jack Canfield. So my whole life has been about the self-help industry or
Yeah.
personal development or finding yourself. And so I think the most inspiring thing for me is when someone finds that they can trust themselves because so many human beings look outside of themselves to find answers. I think that we're so afraid and we're not confident. We haven't been taught how to go within and how to meditate and how to connect with our own higher power.
Yeah.
And so we kind of act a little lost, like we don't know and we can't do it and we're the victim and we have to have somebody else tell us what to do. And a lot of people get lost on that journey because they take somebody else's answer, which isn't really right for them, and
Mhm.
think that they have to
Mhm.
follow what that other person is saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what has inspired me my whole life is really helping people to discover how to access their inner power and how to connect with it and how to come from it so that they can come into the world with a responsibility that they can create their future. They're not at the effect of circumstances. They can actually create circumstances.
Yeah. And what a powerful place to come from, you know.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding.
And so I know before, so a lot of people listening to this have probably uh, uh, knew about the movie The Secret that came out.
Oh,
What
yeah.
year did that movie come out?
That was 19, what was it?
Was it
2004, I
oh
think it was.
04? Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Because what happened is Jack Canfield and I created the Transformational Leadership Council, which was an organization and still is actually of very renowned thought leaders and people who work to help other people, find themselves, so to
Yep,
speak,
yep,
authors and teachers and coaches and trainers. And at our third meeting, just before we were going to do the third meeting of the Transformational Leadership Council, I get a call, and it's from a woman, Rhonda Byrne. And she says she's a television producer from Australia, and she heard that I ran the Transformational Leadership Council. And could she come and film all of us for a movie or a television show at the time she wanted to make called The Secret, The Law of Attraction? And so it's kind of funny because I called Jack because he was the co-founder.
uh-huh,
And, I always felt he should make the decisions because he had created and started the TLC. So I called him to say, hey, this, producer wants to come and film us. And he was so funny. He says, no, he says, those transformational leaders are whores for the camera. which is funny because we all are kind of whores for the camera, right? Put a camera in front of one of us and we'll just go, yeah, I'm here. Let me be filmed. And so I laughed and he said, we'll never get the meeting done. We won't have, it will never happen. So I said, you're probably right. So I was just about to call her back and tell her no, she couldn't come.
Uh-huh.
When what happened was really an extraordinary experience for me is I heard this voice almost like it was way inside of me, but I could hear it. It wasn't like a sound outside, it was something that was welling up inside of me.
Okay.
And that had been a natural occurrence for me, having worked with my Aunt Gladys and having learned all of the things that I had learned about metaphysics and how to get in touch with my inner power and all of those things. So it was a natural kind of happening for me, but I was listening and the voice said, she's supposed to be there. So I called Jack back and I said, she's supposed to be there. And, I didn't tell him all of the things that had happened, but he said, okay, well, if she's going to come, then I want you to know, Marcia, you have to be responsible for the film shoot because I want to make sure that it doesn't distract from the meeting.
Uh-huh.
And so I ended up being the person responsible that put together the film shoot
Wow.
and,
Wow.
kind of organized all of the speakers that were in the movie and got the place where we were going to film. And it was really funny because we were at my country club in Aspen, Colorado, in Snowmass Village at the Snowmass Country Club. And I go to the general manager, Becky, and I say, Becky, I need another room to film in. I've got a film crew coming from Australia. And she says, Marcia, there's no room. Like there's no room. Everybody is here and it's full and there's just no room. And we
Yeah.
can't do it. And I was like, no, you don't understand. They're coming. So we go from office to office trying to figure out, well, where can we put them? And we figured out that there was this guy that was on vacation and he had this little postage stamp of an office. And we had to take all the furniture out because it was so small in order to get the cameraman in and the director and a stool. They filmed us on a stool in front of one wall. And then
Okay.
on the other side of the wall, which was about 4 inches away, there was be the cameraman with his back up against that wall with the
Wow.
camera. So it was
Wow.
just so wild how we filmed that movie. But yeah,
Wow. And of course, watching it, you'd never know that the movie looked great, you know?
yeah, yeah. She had us in front of a green screen, and then
Uh-huh.
she was magical how she put that movie together.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
many of us were filmed that didn't get in the movie, and she was supposed to make a second and a third movie, but that movie made so much money that she just went off and did her thing in life, and that was the end of no more movies.
No more movies. I'm good with that one.
Yeah. Mm,
Well, this is fascinating. This is fascinating. So, okay, so I want to switch gears just a little bit, and I want to start talking and digging more into the relationship side of this. And so, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
well, thank you. Well, first of all, my aunt for sure, because
Okay.
she really taught me how to go within and find my own inner power and a higher power to come from, and not be about me, but be about something bigger in terms of having a mission and a purpose in life.
Okay.
And she always said that people don't work for money, really. What they really want, human beings really want, is to make a difference.
Uh-huh.
And so my whole life has been about service from the very beginning of
Yeah.
being a teenager because of my apprenticeship with her. So that really changed everything. And then I would have to say Werner
Okay.
Erhard, who was the founder of EST. And I met him before we created EST when he was training us in the mind dynamics training. But I worked with him for almost 10 years, and he was a great mentor of mine. And I learned a lot of things. I learned what to do and what not to do. I watched him in terms of him becoming rich and famous and how a person handles wealth and how they handle power. So I learned both the light and the dark during those 10 years. of how a person, it's a lot to all of a sudden be famous.
Yeah.
And I don't think many people realize that you can have a lot of dreams about what you think you're going to do, and then get a lot of money and a lot of fame and operate differently. And I think that Werner had to face some of those kinds of demons within himself. And I saw him do that. And I learned how to face demons. I learned how to look to see what was right, what was good. I learned how to be true to myself. I learned so many things and skill sets too, communication, sales, leadership. So a lot of what I do today, because I do work with corporate leaders, CEOs, and I'm an executive coach and trainer, and I go into large organizations and entrepreneurial organizations and teach them how to change their culture so that the culture is one of alignment and cooperation and camaraderie rather than just blame and power and money.
Uh-huh.
So I think that he would be somebody that I would say changed my life altogether, for sure.
Well, I'll tell you, after reading your book, I would totally agree with that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, there's some wild scenes in there for
for
sure.
sure, for sure. So, what's an example of a situation where you personally, Marcia, got to make a really substantial impact? Maybe even in the moment, maybe it even surprised you a little bit. I don't know. But you also know that would have never been possible if not for your relationship with either one of the people that you just mentioned. What's an example of something like that?
Well, you can say the breadth of my experience for both of those people that they really made a difference because when I first met Werner, I was like a lot of people, which people are afraid to speak in front of groups.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And that's one of the fears that many people have.
Yeah.
And so when I first started off speaking, I would be in the bedroom because we did our seminars at Hanukkah's house on the floor in a circle. The graduates would sit on the floor and Werner would teach us an advanced skill set from the training. And then the guests would go into the bedroom and I would sit on the dresser and the guests would sit on the bed. And that's how I would, you know, tell them about the training and enroll them. So there would be 3 or 4 or 5 guests on the bed.
Okay.
Well, then we got to be so big that we needed to move to hotel rooms. And then the guest seminars got bigger. So all of a sudden there was 20 people, and then there was 30 people, and then there was 50 people.
Wow.
And I remember this one time, Werner came up with this idea to have special guest seminars
Okay.
because we always had guest seminars as the way that we promoted the training. But he said we should have a special guest seminar where the graduates can stay the entire time and they can bring their guests, and the guests can stay the entire time with the graduates. And I'll talk about, he was saying he would talk about a particular subject and teach them all together. And so then they would get a sense of what could happen in the training, and then it would be an enrollment event at the breaks. And so we started doing these events that had 1,000 and then 1,500 and then
Wow.
2,500 people in these big auditoriums in hotels. And then one day he asked me over to his office and he says, because I was in charge of filling events,
Uh-huh.
so I would be the one that he would say, I want to have this event about this subject. And then I would prepare all of the materials and teach all of the trainers how to promote it and, make up all of the announcements and things like that in order to fill it. And so he said, this next month, let's do 2 special guest seminars. And I was like, okay, that sounds fine. And we'll put 2,500 in each one of them. We'll have them one night and then the next night. And so I thought, okay, I can do that. I can fill 2 rooms back to back, 2,500 people. Well, the day of the second event, after he had led the first event, he asked me over to his office and he said, okay, there's just one change. He says, tonight you're going to lead it, not me.
Nice.
And I was just like, I am not going to do that. I said, no, absolutely not. You're wrong. I am not the one because at that time, I think the most amount of people that I talked to in a group was about 150. So
Wow.
150 to 2,500 is a big jump. I
That's a
was just
big
like,
jump.
yeah, I just refused. I said, no. I was like one of those people, put my feet
Mhm,
in the sand
mhm.
and I'm not going further. And he said, "Oh, you'll be fine." He said, "All you have to do is just get up on the stage and turn around and look at somebody, find one person that you
Oh,
can look at and remember how much you love them, and it'll be fine from there." And I was furious, number one, and I was panicked, number two. But that night, all I remember is going down that aisle up to that stage, and I couldn't see anything. It was just all black as far as I was concerned. I was so
uh-huh,
in my head.
uh-huh.
And I turned around and there's 2,500 people, and I just found somebody to connect with and speak to, and it was fine from there. So that was
Wow.
a
Wow.
big kind of um, that was a big breakthrough for me.
That's huge. And he had faith, Werner had faith in you.
Yes, and I think that's one of the things that I have learned from him along the way to empower people because I now train senior executives, and you'd
Uh-huh.
be very surprised to know that most of them are micromanagers and
Okay.
they want to do everything themselves and they
Uh-huh.
want to approve everything and really what they're doing is they're saying they don't trust their people. You
Yeah.
have to give a person some power. You have to empower them. And of course, they're going to make mistakes. And I made mistakes, but Werner was smart enough to give me the room and the empowerment to get it done.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
of course, I grew into it
Yeah.
because I had that space to grow. He didn't micromanage me. He trusted me and he made a good bet on me.
Yeah.
That was true because
Yeah.
I enrolled a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. What a powerful example right there. And and it, I've had people in my life that believed in me, that saw things in me before I could see it for myself.
Yes,
They pointed things out to me that at the time, I couldn't own it at the time, but they're telling me, well, Kev, this is you,
yes,
you know.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and but today I own that, and
Because you rise to that occasion,
yeah,
don't you?
yeah, yeah,
You trust yourself when somebody else trusts you, and you at
yes,
least go and try it out and see what
that's
you
right.
can do. And you
Yes,
make a mistake, but you learn from it, and pretty soon you're very skilled. So it's
yes,
empowerment that's happening, and you have to have somebody that trusts you enough and trusts themselves.
yeah,
I find CEOs, like if they're micromanaging, I know it's not only that they don't trust their people, they don't trust themselves.
uh-huh, uh-huh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, for anybody that might be listening to this, because we have a lot of entrepreneurs that run companies and have teams of varying sizes and stuff, and maybe some of what you've been sharing has kind of got them thinking. But for anybody that's listening to this going, man, Kev, I really like Marcia, and heck, they're probably thinking like, I need to go get her book, man. And
I
I'm going to
definitely
tell
should go get my book for
you
sure.
should go get her book. I
Yeah,
will
it's
tell you from
amazing.
personal experience, it is an absolutely fascinating read.
Yeah,
And if you've ever, if you've had interactions with the personal development industry, I will tell you, this book is going to be riveting for you.
yes,
So,
absolutely. And
and
people tell me, even who haven't done any personal development courses, it's riveting
yeah, it is.
because it's about finding your voice and it's not just about the history of the human potential movement and the self-help industry. It's that, but it's my memoir and my story and how I lived it and how I saw it. And also, it's about finding your own voice and having the courage to use it.
Yeah,
And it's also about patterns. It's about the patterns that we all have from our youth that sometimes get in the way and sometimes help us and sometimes close us down and sometimes imprison us and sometimes set us free and how one discovers one's patterns and how one gets through those.
yeah,
So it's a great book.
yeah.
What I would say to entrepreneurs is here's what do in an entrepreneurial situation or for an organization when I first start working with them. I
Okay.
do my best that they would have a 3-day course with me, and they would take their top leaders and give them to me for 3 days from 9 until say 6. So
Okay.
full days,
Uh-huh.
with lunch breaks and breaks like that for sure. But if I can get a group of people, senior executives for 3 days, I can transform the culture of the organization. I can actually take a group of individuals and make them into a team. I can take total blame out of the organization because mostly that's how it runs in organizations. You have a bunch of individuals that are competing with each other that
Mhm.
aren't aligned, and don't really know each other and aren't related and are blaming each other for anything that goes wrong. And what I've done is I have created this amazing experience that takes 2 to 3 days, but if 3 days are better, where I've put together what the principles and concepts that are necessary to be an effective human being in terms of leadership, championship performance, communication mastery, relationships. Like, how do you learn how to connect with a person? How do you learn how to be confident and be still and be centered? How do you learn how to cause action? How do you change your mindset, the way that you think? There's several things that are necessary, I have found in my long life of learning many things and working with some of the top thought leaders of the world. I was mentored by Buckminster Fuller and Peter Drucker and Jerry Weintraub, as well as Werner Erhard. So I've had the top thinkers teach me, and now I know how to teach others these same things.
Yeah.
And by the end of those 3 days, everything changes. How people speak, how they listen, how they relate to each other, how they organize themselves, how they build their teams, how they inspire. It's just amazing. So I kind of describe it like, when you learn to read, you don't think about it now. You just pick up a book and read it. Like you can
Mhm.
read Hemingway, for
Yeah.
God's sake, right? You don't even think about it. Like, why can I read this very incredibly sophisticated book?
Mhm.
It's because you know the ABCs.
Yeah.
That's the only reason that you can read Hemingway. It
Yeah.
all starts with the foundation of the ABCs. You learned how letters form words, how they work to sentences, etc. But you didn't even know what you were learning when you learned the ABCs.
Sure.
They
Yeah.
are the fundamentals, right? So
Yeah.
what I've done is I've figured out the concepts, the fundamentals, the ABCs of leadership and championship performance, and put them together in a way that is fun. There's so much laughter. Sometimes there's crying, but it's good crying. There's slaps on the back, there's hugs, there's lots of it's just a joyful 3 days. And people come out thinking differently, speaking differently, listening differently, having a different perspective, reframing how things work, and are able to read Hemingway.
Yeah.
You see? So that's what I love doing more than anything with entrepreneurial organizations.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So for anybody who's hearing you share that and thinking, man, I I should get a hold of Marcia because maybe she might be able to help us, or maybe they're even thinking, I know somebody else that I really want to get her connected with because they'd appreciate that. What is the best way for people to get in touch with you? Any websites, whatever resources we can share?
Sure. My website is marciamartin.com. It's
Okay.
MARCIAMARTIN.com.
Okay.
And on that website, you can schedule a discovery call, a free consulting call with me to tell me what your company is like or what you're like. I do individual coaching as well as executive training.
Okay.
And so you can reach me through my website, marciamartin.com.
Perfect. Perfect. Is there any last thing that you feel led to share, Marcia, before we call it a wrap?
I just want to tell people they should get this book because
Yeah.
this book
Yeah.
is magical.
Yeah.
I didn't know it would be magical when I wrote it. It came from my heart. I didn't use AI. I didn't use a ghostwriter. but it is a remarkable story.
Yeah.
And it's a story that's evergreen. It's, I was a young woman finding my way in a man's world.
Mhm.
So, for every woman out there who needs to know how to make it in life and business,
Yeah.
this book is for you. I was wondering, like where I fit, what my purpose was, where I'm going. There's so many lessons in this book, and I think that people would really enjoy it. They can get it on Amazon, Sex, Power, and Transformation.
Awesome. Well, Marcia, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you. And I'm excited to get this out there and share it with folks. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And God bless you, Kevin, for the difference that you make to so many entrepreneurs and so many families for the way that you are in the world. It's really
Well,
deeply appreciated.
thanks so much. I appreciate that.